Hi, kids. So we are going to start a Shakespearean play, and so I'm going to be doing an introduction on Shakespeare. And I have our old pal Sir Russell Fox from the Canterbury Tales. If you remember him with his friend Chanticleer and his adventures. Hi, kids. He's going to act as a Greek chorus, which might be for you to understand. He might ask questions that maybe you'll ask, or some things you might, over the years, I've heard kids say, and he'll help add to that. Okay? So, as you know, we'll be coming back in a couple weeks, I think. They'll have a board meeting today. We'll find out some more. And I look forward to seeing you guys. Oh, the kids coming back be so righteous. I know. I can't wait for it either, Sir Russell Fox. So, the only thing bummed, I don't like wearing masks all day, but that's something we have to do. Do I have to wear a mask? No, I don't think you can get the virus. I think I have rabies. Okay, that's a whole different issue. All right, anyway, let's get started. So Shakespeare, who was he? First of all, born April 23rd, 1564 to a middle class glove maker and baptized on April 26th. Now on the test, I'm going to ask what year he was born. Okay, so I do. Now it's multiple choice, but you just have to know that. There are no birth certificates back then. They did have, however, baptismal certificates, and they would baptize a baby 3 days after they were born. Why so early? I've heard baptism go like 6 months or even a year after they're born. That's a good question, Sir Russell Fox. Back then, babies died, okay? Without modern medicine, they were worried about them dying before they got baptized, so they did it 3 days afterwards. So we assume his birthday is April 23rd because his baptism was April 26th, and we have actually records of that. The other thing I want you to know is that he was actually middle class, which was fairly new for that time period. His father was well known in the church and things like that, and in town, and that actually helped him out. He got to go to school. Not everybody did back then. Okay. He married Anne Hathaway. She was 26, and he was 18. Not that Anne Hathaway. I like that one. Yeah, I know. She's an actress, and she's very pretty. Okay, so anyway, this is kind of significant because at the age of 18, he marries a girl who was 26. Now, there's no rules against that, but even today, traditionally, a lot of times, the guy tends to be a couple years at least older than the girl, if not the same age. But this is kind of a big difference in age, and they got married fairly quickly. Can anyone tell me why they'd get married quickly? Was she pregnant? Probably so, yeah. And so what you did, you didn't want to be caught having sex outside of marriage, and so they probably hurried the marriage for that reason. Why I bring that up is because he moves away. He does go back to take care of his family. He does pay for his family's house and things, but it might have been a loveless marriage, and there's been lots of rumors and things about that over the years. So I do want you to know he married Anne Hathaway. That's on the quiz. Okay, Shakespeare makes his way eventually to London and joins the acting troupe Lord Chamberlain's Men. You might want to write that down because that is one of the questions, and that is not a multiple choice. It is actually one you have to remember. Lord Chamberlain's Men. Now, how do we know this? Because there were posters, just like you have movie posters today, that actually have William Shakespeare's name on there because he was trying to be an actor. So we know at least when he was there. We don't know if he was there any earlier, but we know he was there at that time. So he was a movie star. No, actually he wasn't. He actually played very small parts in his own plays. In fact, that was one of the problems, probably what drove him to start being a writer. Okay. So before Shakespeare, actors were seen as street performers. They were talented, but made little money. So as you see these guys here, jumping around and stuff like that, you can be very talented, but if you're doing street performing, you're probably not making a lot of money, and that's how the actors did. They would go from town to town with their carriage and their props and things like that, and their costumes, and then they would perform out in the open and hope that people would give them tips, and if they didn't, then they didn't make much money. And that is before Shakespeare that's what Shakespeare was looking forward to, a life of that, and he was going to be considered, kind of, lower class, because you don't make much money doing that. But I thought he was real successful. Yeah, but he was young then. Okay, so they had to get their success. Okay, they performed for tips, and since there were few theaters, there's no way to make people buy a ticket. You see this guy playing guitar behind there. If you're a street musician, you can't get people to pay. So at the end of it, what they would do is they would pass a hat around, and then they would see if anybody would give them tips, and sometimes they did. Now, not everybody wanted to go just for that. So sometimes they would have people sell beer, okay? And of course the beer makers were there, and the people wanted to drink beer, and also gambling was taking place. There was also ladies of the evening. What's that? They were prostitutes. They had pickpockets, of course, who were out trying to rip off the crowd. And so you had kind of a low life attitude toward the theater. When the theater came to town, it could attract a lot of trouble as well as watching a play. People turned out to see the plays, but the crowds attracted pickpockets, prostitutes, gamblers as well. There was also plenty of drinking and misbehaving. One cruel practice was bear baiting. A bear was tied by one leg to a stake, and people bet how many dogs it would take to kill the poor animal. That's mean. I know. We shouldn't mistreat animals like this. And this is what they did. In fact, Mr. Breslin has pictures from Bear Alley outside where the Globe Theater used to be, and it's still called that. And that's where they used to do this. So they'd stake a bear by one leg and then bet how many dogs it would take to kill a poor bear. That's as bad as fox hunting. I know, that's another terrible thing, right? Darn right. All right, so Shakespeare even refers to this practice in his play Macbeth, which we will read. They have tied me to the stake, I cannot fly, but bear-like I must fight the course. And he actually uses that reference several times. So that was a cruel practice that they did outside the theater. I do have that as one of the questions in there, and it is not multiple choice, one you have to remember, okay? No, actually, I think that is multiple choice. Okay, let's see how we're doing here. Yep, so far so good. Shakespeare and his troupe got together enough money to open a proper theater, but it was still in the rough part of London. They called it the Globe. You do need to know that the name of the theater was called the Globe, and it was in a rough part of town. How come? They couldn't afford a good place? Well, they didn't have much money, that's true, but the thing is, they were looked down upon. Nobody wanted to have a theater in your nice part of town. It'd be kind of like having a strip club or something, or maybe a gambling casino today. People may not want that in their neighborhood because it attracts some trouble. Okay, now can anybody tell me what the difference is between being a street performer and playing in a proper theater? I know. Okay, what is it? You gotta pay to get in. Very good, Sir Russell Fox. You are paying attention. Yes, that changed everything. If you wanted to come in to see the play, you got to pay. You can't just watch it and then decide whether you want to pay or not. So that was a big game changer. And a lot of people, they call it Shakespeare's Globe Theater, but the truth is he worked with lots of different performers and actors, and he was just one of many. So he didn't own the theater himself, he owned it with all of his buddies. And even though he wrote the plays, he worked on these plays with his buddies too. And a lot of times they don't get any credit because we don't remember their names. I know some of them because I've studied that, but there were lots of other people who were participating in this, not just him. By all accounts, Shakespeare wasn't the best actor in his troupe. In fact, he had only small parts in his own plays. He discovered he had some talent in writing, so he wrote his first play, Henry VI. Why did he start writing? Well, no one really knows. He never wrote an autobiography. We have to piece together what we do know. But by his own admission, he was never a great actor. And so other people were getting parts. We do know the names of the stars that girls would want to go see, the performers and stuff, and it was not William Shakespeare. So I think he got tired of having little parts, and he thought he'd try his luck at writing. Then he wrote Henry VI. What's Henry VI about? Well, it's about a king, dummy, called Henry VI. And it's a history play. Like if there were a couple years ago, there was a movie out called Lincoln. And you probably enjoyed a movie like Titanic or something like that, which was, historic. When the Titanic sinks, that's really, don't tell me the ending. All right, but anyway, so this is a history play. Henry VI brought their king to life. This Henry VI, and he had some success with it. So, what do you think the second play he wrote was? Henry VI, Part 2. That's right. What do you think your third play was? Henry VI, Part 3. Very good. Just like Hollywood. Okay. Now, you'll never see these plays performed because guess what? He wasn't really good at writing yet. Here's a strong lesson for you, kids. You're not great at something when you start it. Shakespeare wasn't a great writer. Okay. The only people who ever read Henry VI, Part 1, 2, and 3 are people like me with a master's degree in British literature. Okay. Nobody else performs them. They're not that good. He was working on his craft. Enough people did turn out for Henry VI that Shakespeare did what Hollywood often does. His second play was Henry VI, Part 2, and he wrote Henry VI, Part 3. He realized that people liked seeing historic events come to life, things like Titanic or 12 Years a Slave, and seeing their leaders alive on stage. So, think like Lincoln. As word spread, a very important person wanted to see his plays, but would never be seen in a theater. Any idea who that could be? Kanye West. Kanye West wasn't alive then. Kanye North? No! This is the person who was in charge of the country at the time. No idea. The status of actors improved as Queen Elizabeth began enjoying Shakespeare's exceptional plays. More members of royalty began to appreciate the theater. Shakespeare and company were making bank. So what happened was Queen Elizabeth's daddy was a guy named Henry VIII. He was a pretty tough character. And he liked jousting and hunting and fighting. But of course his daughter, who became powerful, was a queen. And queens don't do stuff like that. That's violent and all. And so she was allowed to enjoy the theater. So she did. Okay. Now she would never go to the theater. They actually had to pack up all their stuff and go to perform for her. Wasn't that expensive? Well, yeah, considering that she didn't even pay them. It was just the honor of going to perform for the Queen. Can you believe that? Wow, they don't do that anymore. Actually, they do. When someone performs at the White House, they do it for free. Taylor Swift comes to the White House and performs, it's for free. It's the honor of playing at the White House. So that's still a leftover tradition. But the cool thing is you get to say you played at the White House. Same thing with the Queen. Everyone wanted to go see the play that the Queen thought was good. And so that helped them. And once again, you got to pay to get into the theater. So even though they performed free for the Queen, it was great publicity. Well, look, this is, I think, a good spot to stop. It's about 13 minutes. I don't want to go too far, but that's about half the answers you need for your test. Okay? So even if you missed the class, you can always play this video again. You need to know Queen Elizabeth was in charge of the world at the time of Shakespeare, because that's really kind of a big deal, I think, to being successful. Anything you want to add there, Sir Russell Fox? Nah, eat more chicken. Okay. All right, guys, look, another video to follow for the rest of the details. Bye.